Look no further for heart-stopping dashcam footage you won't see anywhere else. This episode of Wham Bam Dashcam is packed with unbelievable crashes, daring escapes, and jaw-dropping moments you have to see to believe. Gene was sitting in a parking lot when he got a front row seat to the demolition of a Subaru BRZ. Somehow the Subaru driver lost control before slamming head-on into a power pole right in front of Gene's Ford Maverick. Incredibly, the driver got out of the car seemingly unhurt after the airbags deployed. By the way, we weren't sure what kind of car this was, so we asked our Patreon supporters over on our Discord server. Huge shout out to them for helping us identify it as a Subaru BRZ. Gene told us he offered his dashcam footage to the responding police, but they never reached out for it. I'm guessing they didn't need it in this case, but not all collisions are so cut and dry, as we'll see later in the video. Matt was driving down a California highway when he watched a Dodge Durango and a Chevy Astrovan try unsuccessfully to occupy the same space at the same time.
Oh, that was an accident.
When the two drivers both merged into the same lane simultaneously, the result was the Chevy van pit maneuvering the Durango before it slammed into the guardrail. Thankfully, both drivers were able to safely pull over. Elvis's father was driving on an extremely windy day, so windy that they watched a series of power poles topple over on top of a long line of traffic. Thankfully, Elvis's father was able to swerve to avoid getting hit by the falling power lines, but many other drivers weren't so lucky. Maybe they were caught off guard because this happened on a Friday, not a Wednesday. Chris was driving on a wet highway after a rainstorm when he noticed a box truck in the passing lane following an SUV too closely. When traffic stopped for a light up ahead, the predictable happened. Hopefully their gutter work is better than their driving. Oh brother. Thankfully the collision was minor, and so was the damage. Grant was driving home from work late one evening when he watched an SUV driver use an exit to pass highway traffic, which is definitely illegal. Grant isn't a cop though, so he couldn't do anything about it. The driver of the Dodge Charger that passed him shortly after, on the other hand,
Get him! Get him! Get him! Yes! Get that!
Grant told us he celebrated the SUV driver's downfall as the California Highway Patrol trooper turned on the party lights and served up some instant justice. Aiden was being tailgated by a red Mustang after getting off the highway, which may help explain the confusing incident that happened next. Watch what the Mustang driver did when the light ahead turned yellow, then red. If we go frame by frame, we can see that the Mustang driver definitely ran a red light before being forced to brake for a turning van. As if that wasn't bad enough, having to stop triggered the Mustang driver's fragile ego. They made an illegal U-turn before illegally turning left from a straight lane, running another red light in the process, all to chase after the van driver who'd done nothing wrong. Aiden told us he didn't see what else happened, but this was the craziest thing he's seen after being inspired to get a dashcam by watching Wham Bam Dashcam videos. Ray was on his way home when he watched the driver of a gold Toyota pull out in front of traffic before getting T-boned by a black Hyundai. Ray told us he turned around and gave a copy of his dashcam footage to the Hyundai driver. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Diego captured an incident of road rage, or is it? A pedestrian began crossing while his signal indicated not to, and when the Jeep driver next to Diego honked, the pedestrian was not happy. Technically, the guy was standing in the road while raging, but does that make this a road rage incident? Let us know what you think in the comments. This emitter was coming to a gentle stop when the driver of the pickup behind him didn't dodge before ramming his Lexus RX 350. After the collision, both drivers pulled over to exchange information, and that's when he found out the other driver's insurance coverage had expired. He ended up having to make a claim with his own insurance provider. This emitter was leaving work for the day when his light turned green and he proceeded through the intersection. Yeah, that little Ford sped through a turn-only lane to pass our submitter before cutting in front of him, and he had to slam on the brakes to avoid getting sideswiped. Thankfully, no contact was made between their vehicles. Chris is a pizza delivery driver, and he's also one of our Platinum Patreon supporters. He was working when an oncoming driver in a straight-only lane decided she wanted to turn left instead. After witnessing the collision, Chris called the Somerville police. He sent texts to his customers to let them know he'd be late before giving copies of his dashcam footage to the police and to the victim. Even after all that, Chris told us the pies were still on time. One of the customers even tipped him extra for keeping them in the loop. Way to go, Chris.
Hey Ben, don't forget to mention that Patreon supporters get exclusive access to the Wham Bam Discord server where they can chat with members of the Wham Bam team.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot. Thanks, Chris. A link to our Patreon campaign is down in the description. Encore encountered a Tesla behaving badly while driving his Nissan Sentra.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver crossed double yellow lines to pass Encore, who stayed calm and didn't tailgate or even honk in response. This emitter was on his way to a friend's house when the driver of the Honda Civic ahead of him, who'd been randomly brake checking him already, suddenly reversed into his Nissan Murano. That's definitely a Honda bump. After backing into our submitter's SUV, the Honda driver proceeded to claim that our submitter had sped around the corner and rear-ended him. He reported the collision online, and 3 weeks later, the Honda driver was found responsible. He told us that dashcams are worth every single penny. The driver of a flatbed truck came across the road and right in front of Hatto's Chevy Silverado, forcing him to swerve to avoid a collision. Thankfully, Hatto was paying attention, but I suppose if he hadn't been, at least he wouldn't have had to call for a tow truck. Ben had just gotten off the highway when he watched the driver of a Suzuki slam on the brakes before plowing into the back of a stopped pickup truck. Earlier footage from Ben's dashcam seems to indicate the Suzuki driver wasn't paying attention to his driving. Ben stopped to make sure both drivers were okay. Thankfully, there were no injuries. After police responded, Ben told us the Suzuki driver had all sorts of excuses for why the collision had happened. Ben gave them a copy of his dashcam footage before leaving the scene. Ben thanked us for recommending the dashcam he put in his Hyundai Sonata. Gotta love that 4K clarity. If you need a dashcam, check the description for links to the ones the Wham Bam team uses in our own vehicles. This emitter was overtaken by a speeding pickup driver while driving through a construction zone with a reduced speed limit, and he wasn't the only one to be passed by the impatient driver. Our submitter wasn't the only one who spotted the scofflaw. An oncoming Florida Highway Patrol trooper made a U-turn and chased the pickup down to serve up some instant justice. Jimmy was driving when a Honda CR-V ran a stop sign and T-boned his Toyota Camry. Both drivers stopped and Jimmy heard one of his tires deflate. He said the teen driver of the CR-V was in shock, but thankfully nobody was hurt. DJ Cadu was on his way to a gig only 5 minutes from his house when a driver from the right pulled out in front of him before stopping, blocking the street and forcing him to slam on the brakes. DJ Cadu told us he used to live in Florida and Brazilians make Floridians look like great drivers. I'm not sure who should feel more insulted. Rick watched an SUV kiss a car when the SUV driver swerved to go around oncoming traffic that was blocking his lane. Rick followed to see if either driver would pull over so he could give them his dashcam footage, but neither one stopped. Either they didn't realize that contact had been made, or they didn't care. Jasmine was on the phone with her boyfriend Jonathan when she watched a law-abiding bird cross the street in front of her Volkswagen GTI.
This bird is using the crosswalk, Jonathan.
That's so funny.
He's
Jasmine told us the bird was super cute and made me giggle before she continued with her day. She told us they've been watching our videos together since they started dating over 2.5 years ago. Go watch this video to see our first ever Wham Bam proposal cam. Hint, hint, Jonathan. Or watch this episode if you want to see another video our Platinum supporter Chris sent us. Just don't watch and drive, okay?
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.